long time ago, many decades ago, when Taylor was in elementary school. I went to Taylor. When Wiley was a junior high school, and Heights, when I first started, it was only grades 10 through 12. And then when I was a junior, they pushed up ninth graders, eighth graders, and ninth graders at the same time. And then all of the junior highs became middle schools. But I loved Heights. So much so, listen very carefully, that I almost didn't graduate. Yes, I know, Liz. Thank you for your reaction, girl. I was cutting class. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I remember my English teacher was like, well, you need to start coming to class because you're about to fail. And I was like, wait, what? It wasn't even a concept. I didn't even have the idea of like failing. And he said, yes, you've missed too much class. So I got a P for passing, which I don't know, it's not quite an F, but it's like a double D minus or something. And I really had no idea of my direction. I thought I wanted to be a flight attendant because I love to travel, always flying, my brother and I. And I was like, flight attendant, that sounds good. So I didn't really care about school. I didn't have a plan. You need to always have a plan. So by this time, all of my good friends were applying to college, and I was like, okay. I had no idea what I was doing. I took the ACT and got like a really low score. I can't even remember how low it was. And I got accepted into a university junior college. So it was the University of Cincinnati, and then they have like their junior college called the University School or University College, something like that. So I was still paying 100% of university tuition for a junior or community college education. Why? Because my grades were terrible. They were terrible, and I didn't have a plan. And I did actually get an associate's degree from the University of Cincinnati. I transferred there and went to Kent State University. By this time, I was a single mother, so that's another added bonus. Boom. And I was like, I got to do better by my daughter. So everything started to change when my daughter was in the picture, and I was like, I don't want to live this life of indecision and of giving my power away to other people. Kent State University has a library school. I had no idea what that meant. It was this tall, huge building. I think it was 11 stories. It's right in the middle of campus. It's the biggest building that they have. And I had to go in there to take some classes. And I'm sitting around, 12, there you go. I'm sitting around and I'm like, what is this? And I had a teacher who told us that we had to read all these books. And I was like, okay. Kent has this little library down the street from the Kent State University called the Kent Free Library. My daughter and I would go there, and I was looking around like, you mean all this stuff is free? I just need a library card? So I would get video game, well, not video games, videos, books, puzzles, games, all kind of resources for she and I learned how to do stuff. And I learned to like apply what I read and because this is before internet, apply what I read and apply what I saw into my life. And I said, oh my gosh, I got to tell other people about this. I was like, wait a minute. You mean all the answers that I could have or need are in a book for free? And I was like, I'm switching my major. So I went back, switched it to English, had to read, I don't know how many hundreds of books as an English major, applied to a master's of programs to become a librarian, graduated, I want to say August 20, no, when was it? Let me get my years right in my head. When was this? August 1994, I think it was. Yeah. And then I started 2 weeks later in my master's program. And I became a librarian. So I have a master's in library science because I found my way. And I wanted to be a librarian because I wanted to share the information and resources for free to people who look like me. I got my master's and I worked in public libraries for a while. I got married, had another baby, and I worked at first Shaker Heights Public Library. Then I worked in Cleveland Heights Public Library as well as East Cleveland Public Library. So I worked actually for Cleveland Heights Public Library for 10 years part-time. In the meantime, I decided that I wanted to be a school librarian. And they have this whole separate road. It's another process. You have to be licensed to work in schools. And then I was in this education program to get my licensure. And I became a school librarian. And I worked at East Cleveland City Schools. I worked at Canterbury Elementary School for 3 years. And then I got a job in Shaker, and I worked for Shaker for 17 years. So altogether, 20 years as a school librarian. And I really enjoyed it quite a bit. I had a lot of fun. Um, Plus, to me, it was very important to bring fun back to reading because I never read as a school a student in school. So I did that, and as this time was changing in my life, I found yoga. So I found yoga in about 1999. There's these things called VHS tapes. I don't know if you ever seen a VHS tape. Okay, it's like a box. You put it in this thing, it's connected to TV. So the public library had free videos there again. And I heard that yoga was good for stress. So I put the VHS tape in, and I would sit in my basement and I would do some yoga because my stress was high. I'm like 30, 29, 30. I was like, this is some mess. I should not be feeling like this in my life. It should feel differently. So yoga started to become this thing that I craved. And I found a yoga studio. It's called Cleveland Yoga. It's in Beechwood. And I just went in there on a humble because they had a new student offer. And I said, it's spring break. I'm going to try yoga. I loved it. And I would practice yoga that first week every day during spring break. And I would be exhausted, but I would feel invigorated. And then that summer, they had a special package. School librarians are off in the summer, just like teachers are. And I would go every day, sometimes twice a day. At the end of the summer, they offered me a position to be a karma yogi, which means that you can get free yoga classes if you clean the studio. And I was like, I could do that. So I did like, I don't know, 2 or 3 classes a week to get free yoga. From there, I did that 2 or 3 years. Then I became a desk person. So I worked the desk to get free yoga and to get paid some money. Meantime, I'm like, I think I want to be a yoga teacher. So I told my manager, I said, you know what, I think I'm going to be a yoga teacher. They were like, we knew. We were just waiting for you to tell us. And I was like, oh, okay. So I did. In 2013, I became a yoga teacher. And during this process, there's a lot of work. You practice teaching, you go through some philosophy of yoga, you learn about yourself, you create teamwork, cooperation, all those kind of things. And at the end, we had to write goals. Like, what do you want to do in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years? And I think I said in 1 year, I really want to brand this idea called daybreak yoga. So when I was working at East Cleveland City Schools, people would ask me to help them do research or edit papers. So I created what I called daybreak services. So when I'm sitting in yoga teacher training, writing my goals, I was like, you know what? I want to create daybreak yoga. Yeah. Daybreak yoga is going to still be that whole idea of a light on the hill, sharing information, resources, giving people power back through yoga. And I was like, okay. And plus I said, I want to like infuse some spiritual Christianity into that as well. Then I had to write 5 years. So in 5 years, I want to open up my own yoga studio. And I didn't really know much. I just wrote that down. And I forget what I wrote for 10 years. So I graduated. I got my first teaching job at the YMCA in Warrensville. I was like, ooh, woo, teaching, teaching, teaching. Then I taught at some other YMCAs for about 5 years or so, 4 years. Meanwhile, I was getting private clients. I had 2 private clients. One was one of my high school students. Instead of gym class, she did her yoga for her gym credit with me. So I'm pushing along. I'm still a school librarian. I'm still working sometimes part-time at Cleveland Heights Public Library. Decided to finally let that go. I was still working part-time at, see, don't ever do this because this is one thing that Black women do. We work too much. We work too hard. You don't have to do all that. I still was working part-time at Cleveland Yoga. all these things. So I was starting to let stuff go and really focus only on daybreak yoga. I'm teaching at this one event, this corporate event for all these students. And this guy comes up to me and he was like, "Do you have your own studio?" And I was like, "Why are you flirting with me?" No. So he was like, "I have a martial arts studio and there's a room in the back. You could rent it." And I was like, so I asked my best friend, "I need you to go with me because I don't know this man. Playing games. He might be lying." But he wasn't. So he does have a martial arts studio. It's in Lyndhurst. And he was like, "I want to kind of infuse yoga and everything." And he was a new entrepreneur. And I was like, "Okay." So I created like a summer package. And I'm marketing and I'm putting stuff out on people's car windows. I'm putting signs up. I'm emailing people. And I was really struggling because all the people who said, "Once you have your own thing, I'll come and support you," they didn't. And I was like, you know what? It's okay, because what you find out is your ideal client or the person who is connected to what you have to say or do or give to them, they'll come to you. By this time, I was like, I think I want to own my own space. So I started looking around. First, I was going to do it in Shaker Heights, and I was working with their city council people, and they were like, "Well, this landlord's kind of, and this person, and I was like, I don't know." Then my mom had a stroke. So she's okay. She lost some of her vision. And the first year she was living by herself, first 9 months, a lot of things were happening. And she was very nervous. So I said, "Okay, I'll move in with you." And when I moved in, we were walking around downtown Bedford, thank you, which is not far from where she lives. And I was looking around, and I was like, "Oh, there's all these for lease signs. There's one over there." And I started calling people. Started calling to see, well, how much is rent? How does this work? And this one guy, he called me back and we went. And I was looking around, went through the process. This was over the summer. By that August, I signed the lease. And as I was signing the lease, I realized it was 5 years from the goal that I wrote in yoga teacher training that I was going to open up my own studio. So I wrote it down because words have power and they become things. So if you don't believe in yourself, or if you think something is hard, or if you believe that you cannot do it, you will not be able to do it. It happens in the mind. It comes out of the mouth, and then that action happens. Now, did I have to do the work? Yes, I did. I had to become a yoga teacher. I had to teach. I taught all over. I would teach in Euclid, Lakewood, Mayfield Heights, Chesterland. I taught all over. Any kind of corporate thing that I could find, any private person that I would go to their houses. They would come to my house. I would do yoga in the park, wherever. I taught as much as I could to get it out there. I had to learn how to be a yoga teacher. I had to learn how to be a business person. So it wasn't just like it magically manifested. But because I put it out there, you put things out there in the universe, then slowly they come together and it happens. So that's why I always say words have power and they become things. So write it down, believe in yourself, and you'll be so surprised of what you could do. So that's my story. So I opened up the studio October 2019, 2018, 2018. And there's like a whole process when you open up a brick and mortar. There are licenses that you have to have. You have to get permits. You have to get all kind of things. And I'm learning that along the way. And I'm still working as a school librarian full time. And then I would teach at my studio in the evening. I was exhausted. I was being coached, and I was getting an advanced yoga teacher certification in Washington, D.C. So once a month, I would drive to Washington, D.C. to be trained with this global yoga teacher, this Black woman who owns a studio. And this is a 6-hour drive. So I would drive and then drive back, exhausted, and go back to work, teach yoga. I did that for 10 months. And then in September 2019, I resigned and have been a full-time entrepreneur since then. Look, you heard me, almost fell out of school. And every decision, there is a consequence. Every choice, there's a consequence. And it's okay to pause, to close your eyes, to take a breath, to think through it before you say yes or no. Because sometimes your yes, like the yeses I made cutting class with this girl, that affected me for years. It took me for years and years to get caught up because I didn't go to class. My daughter, she had a pretty good academic scholarship to Howard University, and Howard University is in Washington D.C. It's a historically black college, and she loved it, but she wasn't going to class, and she lost her scholarship. And then that put her back a minute. So she came home, she went to Tri-C, I made her pay for school. And she did go back to Howard. She doubled down, she changed her major. She ended up graduating on time and with honors. But I'm like, all you had to do was go to class. There's so much stuff out there that pulls you, but you will miss out on valuable information by not being fully engaged in class. I mean, what is it, 50 minutes? How long is class? That's it. That's it. Go to class for one. For two, I would say the best way to make the best out of heights is that it's a blink of an eye and it's over. So find the friends that have some of the same interests as you. And I know people have said this before, but it's true. So there's this book that I'm reading. It's called Think and Grow Rich. Because remember, it starts in the mind. And this man, his name is Napoleon Hill. He interviewed tons of rich people about 100 years ago. And he wrote a formula about how to become rich. And one of the things is called a mastermind group. So in this mastermind group are other people who hold you accountable, who also want to be rich or also want abundance and also want to be successful. They do these steps together. So if you're around somebody, like I'm around somebody cutting class, she didn't care. She never went to college. She's still kind of stumbling. I'm 51, still stumbling through life trying to figure it out because of high school, right? Because of high school. You think that it's not going to affect you? It will. It will. So in your mastermind group, in this group of people who will hold you accountable, who will stand with you, who will say no, because sometimes it can be hard to say no when you're by yourself. But if you got a group of people, 4 or 5 people with you, it is much easier to do that. I know. Totally read this book, Think and Grow Rich. Now, it's a manual kind of book. So each chapter, he gives you things. But the mastermind group, like I'm in a coaching group right now, and I have a mastermind partner. She lives in Bakersfield, California. So we get on the call every Thursday and we connect to see like, how are you doing? How can I support you? And we hold one another accountable. First, let me just say that it's still not effortless. You know, I'm still a young entrepreneur. I'm still a young brick and mortar entrepreneur. So I'm still learning through this process myself. We had to pivot. So on March 13th, which was Friday the 13th, 2020, I had to close my studio temporarily. I cried. I was like, oh my God, I quit my job. COVID, what? I could not believe it. I was so afraid. And so I put out to my community that I needed help. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to get started. We aren't online. I didn't know anything about like how to set up and teach online. And people were like, here, do this. Here's a camera. Here, let me help you set up. Da 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 da. And I had to create a whole like new platform, rearrange my my website so people knew how to get there. So yes, we have the majority of our classes are online. I have one teacher who's in Michigan. She teaches only from online. We have what we call Back to Basics, which is our beginners class. I created a beginners online course where all the videos are on there. You can access it yourself. I had to find myself again. So I try to be happy because happiness goes from the inside out. And you hear that, you know, it's like cliche. People say it all the time, but it makes a difference because you have to love your life. And in teacher training, I decided to do 2 things. I had claimed for myself that I love my life. And I would say it every day. I didn't even know what that meant, but I was like, I love my life. I love my life. And it took a year. And one day I was looking in the mirror and I was like, I love my life. And then the other thing I did when I was turning 42, I had 42 things for my 42nd year. And people were like, is this your bucket list? And I was like, it's not. I just wanted to get over fear. So some of the things I did was like make my bed every day, read your Bible, go to places by yourself, like go to a concert by yourself. And I go to concerts by myself all the time now. And then I did more challenging things like fly a plane. I flew a plane. I did a high ropes course, 25 and 50 feet. I jumped out of a plane. I did flying trapeze lessons. I did whitewater rafting because fear was holding me back. And when you're afraid, it will age you. It'll make you look old. Most people who are youthful, they take life as an adventure and excitement every day. So find something that you love and you don't have to ever explain yourself. Just this is what I love. If it's playing video games, if it's drawing, if it's hula hooping, if it's gardening, whatever you like to do it. Don't explain yourself. The tribe will come.